Hi, I'm David Dessereau, and today I'm going to be talking about The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, more specifically the first half of The Blade Itself, with a friend and fellow booktuber Pablo Suarez. Pablo is a reader and writer of fantasy who makes a lot of great content. After this video, definitely go check his channel out. I will link it down below. And we actually have a spoiler-free review of The Blade Itself over on his channel. Go ahead.
Basically, I I'm like this because my heating isn't working. It's pretty simple. Um, yeah, that's it.
Oh no! Oh man, that
It's
sucks.
cool. It just
Um,
probably people watching and see this. It's just my heating is not working, so that's why I'm cosplaying. Okay, I'm in the vibe of the Northmen. I'm a Northman.
or you're basically a Baez just dressing up as a fancier wizard.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
Something like that. Logan Nine Fingers. That dude has my favorite perspective, my favorite POV. It is he's the savage Northman, he's the barbarian. His stuff is filled with action all the way, from start to finish.
The first thing I think when thinking about spoilers is that one scene where Baez goes and basically they're going from the library into probably the city. Well, not probably. They're I know they're going to a city, but yeah, they come to like a passage, and then there's like this group of Northmen waiting for them. And the culmination of the scene is Byers bursting, like not himself a flame, but like making everything explode in fire. And then there's like the chaotic battle scene. It's not even a battle; it's like a massacre. And then he extinguishes the fire and goes, "Well, that's that," which is like top notch, like
Easy.
comedic timing. It made me laugh
Yes.
so hard.
I love how the comedy is just interwoven with character development. And you have somebody, because you have Malakis Quay, right? The rookie, the young man
Yeah,
who's scared shitless. And then you have Logan Nine Fingers, the battle hardened warrior, and he's stressed out. He's, fighting for his life. And you have Baez, the wizard. He's just casually, well, oh, you got stuck? Boom. Everybody just exploded into flames, and
yeah,
let's move on. Let's go. All right. And it's just like, it shows how much of a badass he
yeah.
is that he's not phased. He's not phased by this at all. And yeah, I love that. So we're halfway through. That's the latest battle. But even in the beginning of Logan's story, he's running from the Shenkas, the
Mhm.
the flatheads, and these people they care so little about their own lives that he's hanging off a cliff, and one actually bites him in the calf because it doesn't care if they both fall. They just want to kill him that bad. And it shows what kind of environment he's used to. This is another day for Logan. And I really like that after that, he has a terrible day and so many things go wrong, but he's happy he has his pot and he
Yeah.
has that good outlook still.
It's, at least I
Yes.
still have my pot. And even later, he loses that pot, and it's like, you know what? I'm still alive.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, I
like,
thought for sure he was gonna kill Malakis Kwai during that scene. I thought, oh, he's gonna finish him off, and he's talking about these hard decisions and how he has to learn to let go and everything. And
again, the
he looks back.
pacing, the comedic timing. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Pot, we've had a nice long run. I'm living here. I thought it was fully just
Mhm.
gonna just boom dispose of Malakas Quay.
I thought for sure that's where it's going. And
It's
yeah, he's
that
just like,
comedic timing is so
had
good.
to
It's
leave
so
the
good.
pot behind. Ugh.
I think for me, what really defines the character of Logan is the fact that the very first two words that come out of his mouth is shit on both occasions. Is like there's like inner monologue in between, but there's like he says shit, and then that's the first word that we hear from him, and then it's like shit again when he I think is when he survives the fall. And that represents what this not even just the character, just the whole tone of the book um, is. So that's what stuck out for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, totally agree. I think you've touched on it, I believe, in the other video.
Mm,
Just how visceral a lot of the writing is.
yeah,
It's just shit, or
yeah,
there's just a lot of blood and things like that.
yeah,
And that immediately the dialogue just tells you what kind of book, this is what you're in for.
yeah.
And then I like how he just brings up those small pieces of backstory, and
Mhm.
you get those just kind of woven in.
I just think that the flashback that he has, they're really good because it explains why he's such a, battle hardened warrior, and like where he comes from. And it shows in like things like, for example, when he is in the library and he survives all of those initial, running from the Shanka, and then carrying Malachus Quay on top of his shoulders for like 40 miles, and then he almost bursts to tears just being, warm and fed, and having, a warm bath and food. So you really understand that how like this character sort of comes to be this,
Yeah, you see
being
where he's coming
tough and
from.
being, yeah,
He's lost everything. He's lost his family, all his friends,
yeah,
everybody he's known. He has nothing really left. Just surviving day by day, taking it
that is
one day
it.
at a time. He just tries to be as reasonable as he can be and just see where life takes him. And that's where he's at in this story and halfway through. And so he's teamed up with Baez, and it'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here. So I assume that at some point Logan will get involved with the war to the north, and he'll have a massive role in the climax.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm pretty sure he's because there has been hints here and there of what he's really capable of, but we haven't seen the bloody nine. We haven't seen the full blown, well fed, well rested, ready to battle Logan, and I'm excited to see it because there's definitely going to be a battle where he's like at the very front of the action.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
It'll be
And
interesting to see if he's like in the opposite band to like other characters, and see I don't know, maybe Jezal or West fighting him, like two warriors fighting each other.
yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they all tie together.
Yeah,
And we still haven't seen what the spirits are capable of. We know he
yeah,
spoke with the spirits earlier on. They only showed it one time. And I really doubt that's gonna be the only time. It'd be hilarious if Joe
definitely.
Abercrombie was just like, yeah, he talked to spirits one time and that was
But nah,
that's it. Let's move on. And so I assume they come back in the second half of the book in some way, and I'm really looking forward to that. Glotka's story is so interesting because he literally tortures people, and we're rooting for it. We're sitting there like, man, I hope this guy tells him what he wants to hear. And it's like that is such a mind fuck.
yeah,
And for him to do what he does, and it's really interesting knowing his backstory. So now that we're halfway
yeah,
through, we've seen that he used to not only fight with Captain West, he used to actually be his commander. He was higher up than West, and he went from being so high to, I mean, he only has
losing
one
everything.
leg basically, and
Yeah,
he's missing most of his teeth. Everything hurts all the time, and he's only 30. Like initially we hear about it, and we hear about his
I
character.
thought he was in his 70s when I started reading the book. I
Hmm.
literally thought it was in his 70s. It was
Yeah,
such a shock when I read, oh yeah, I'm in my 30s.
I
Like,
was like, oh,
whoa,
I know how
damn.
much he's been through. And
Yeah,
it's great seeing his relationship with his practicals. Like
yeah.
Practical Frost, it was, uh,
Just
just
sat
he's
in
the
a room,
muscle. Yeah,
like sat in a room there in the dark.
they open the door and he's like, "Were you just sitting in the dark?" And he's like, "You light a candle or something." Oh, okay, that's it. And then you have
Yeah,
Sevard, who is the brains, and you can tell he plans ahead. He's been saving up money. He buys this house for Glotka,
yeah,
this new torturing palace, and it's like, and it warms his heart. He's just
yeah.
like, oh, my boys, they looked out for me, and
That
have
is
this
such
new
an interesting
chamber, and
relationship. Here,
this
this is my
nice
gift for you,
chair.
my torturing gift for you.
Yeah, and they even thought it
So
out. They
funny.
have the nice painting in the background with somebody bleeding, and
Yeah,
again with the
and the
visceral
chair,
imagery. Yeah, the chair. The
not
chair
the
is
chair. The only
key.
thing. Yeah,
So far we've seen him torture a lot of merchants and things like that, and so we kind of already know what he's about and what he does. I feel like the second half of the book, is he going to torture one of the characters we know? Is he going to run across somebody from familiar? That's because I'm wondering, with the war in the north, what is he going to do? He's not going to
yeah.
war. you know
Now that you just mentioned that, something just occurred to me. There is a section in the book where we've read just about for those that have read the book and know like the whereabouts we've read. They've just got to the buyers and Logan and Malachus. They just got to the city, so they've had their theatrical outfitting thing. So that's round about where we are. And there is a section where Jezal references the fact that his father has had dealings with Salem Ruse, I think. So I'm wondering maybe there's something there, like a foreshadowing of maybe Glokta persecuting Jezal for that. So it would be interesting to see if that is like one of the, because we already know that Glokta has some sort of relationship with Jezal, and how Glokta was asked by I think it was Varus to have a talk, have one of your talks with Jezal and maybe straighten him up.
Glokta is a great motivational speaker.
Yeah. It's really good as well how Abercrombie portrays, like, Glokta has the same entrance every time, which is everyone gets uncomfortable. Everyone goes, "Oh, hi, hello, yes, you're very famous, but I really do not want to be near you."
Yeah, it's such a contrast from his relationship with basically his coworkers, his practicals, because everybody else, they hear the clicking and tapping, and then they tense up and they go, "Oh," or even if they're approaching him, they're just like, "Oh, hey, can you do this thing for me?" And they're just very distant, just, "Oh, yeah, oh, remember, yeah, we're good friends, right? Yeah, okay." And they scurry off, and versus his practicals who are actually his friends.
Before we move on from Logan, I forgot to say that one cool thing that I really liked is when he goes into the city and he loses his shit. Everything is, basically has an agoraphobic attack, and everything is like claustrophobic, and everything is he gets anxious. And we're talking about a seasoned warrior and someone that has been escaping death for as long as he's been alive, and then the city is completely out of sorts. And that is, I think, is really, really well done by Abercrombie. It's not like, breezes over, oh yeah, there's a city with hundreds of millions, thousands of people, and you need to portray that shock that it would have on someone that maybe has only lived in populations of, I don't know, 50, 100 people. So it's really well
absolutely. I thought initially that they were going to try to pull off something like some funny, oh, he dresses weird and the people in the city are going to laugh, which they do. They do that, a little bit, but that's not the main thing. It's the crowd. It's the sheer amount of people. And he's like, there's hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands. How could there be that many people?
Is that even a number? Exist? Yeah.
He's just like, what do you mean? And then he feels so claustrophobic. I had anxiety just reading it because I'm like, oh man, he can't breathe. Like, it's just, ugh. And it reminds me of that Game of Thrones episodes, the Battle of the Bastards.
Battle of the Bastards,
Jon Snow's
best episode.
Jon Snow's, yes, it was so good. It's so satisfying watching Jon Snow just pound Ramsay's face. But yeah, it's just like that, where Jon Snow was getting crushed by the people. And you feel like, Logan has that same feeling. And even though it's not a violent scene, it's still a powerful image of just being smashed by all these people. And then you see in the big city, everybody's not equal. You have the people begging on the street, and you have the regular citizens just walking right by them like they can't see them. And that's just like real life. If anytime you're in or around near a big city, like I'm near San Francisco, and you see a lot of the same stuff. You see there's the people who have a lot of money, who are in their big penthouse suites, the tech bros and things like that. And then in those same buildings, you go to the very bottom, you go to the street level where everybody's walking, and there's homeless people, begging for food, money, whatever it is. And all those people, they're all crammed into the same spot, and you see them every day, and people just walk right past them. And you get that imagery in a fantasy novel. And I think by bringing real world things like that, it just makes it just feel more, I hate to say, just feel more real.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it definitely helps you connect with the story more. And to see a character like Logan, he's experiencing this, like, well, they're eating right there, and that person's starving right there. What's going on? I don't understand this way of living, because he's used to being out in the north in the villages where there's a small amount of people. And just seeing...
and it's the sheer bewilderment of having the resources but not understanding why, social castes would come into play. Like, in his mind, what I imagine is going on in his mind is, well, if I'm sat in a campfire and there is someone that is starving, which is what he does with Malachus Way. He said, you know what, you need this more than I do. And it's that sheer bewilderment that he is going on, that Abercrombie really manages to capture, and it's that feeling of credibility, that it's not brushed over, like it's not sacrificed in favor of a plot, and you
Right.
really have time to get into the characters, get into the world building, understand every point of view.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely a great way to do world building, because it's a scene, there's conflict, even though there's really no, villain in the scene, but there's enough where you feel like this is an intense moment
I
and you
suppose the villain
understand
is society, really, in that case, society,
yeah,
the way that
that's true. It tells you right away a little bit about the world, but also how one of our main characters reacts to it.
yeah.
And it's done through conflict. So it keeps it interesting the entire time. I really like that detail.
Glokta is such an interesting, complicated character, and I think what really appeals to me is that is an unpredictable character, because you don't know. He's basically going through something that is worse than death, so he's really not scared. Like, people go up to him and threaten him, and he's like, "What are you? Do you know who I am? Like, what? I don't give a shit. Like, I've been through hell and back a couple of times."
The way he talks about, even when he's like, "Oh, I might fall down these stairs, and then I'll finally be at peace," and he's just like, like maybe I'll finally die.
He is almost
he doesn't
constantly
care.
fantasizing with death. It's like, would that really be that bad if I died right now? Mm,
That might be fine. And then he's
yeah,
just like, so what can his enemies tell him? Even when
yeah.
the Archlector first brings him in, he takes him out of his own torturing room and brings him into another one, and he's like, oh, is he going to do the same stuff to me? Huh? Or is it going to be quick or whatever? And he's just so indifferent. And none
Yeah.
of it matters. It's just, okay, that's fine.
And
And
it's like, it is that you don't really know his motives. You don't really know what he wants. What does Glokta want? Like, what is he really after?
yeah,
So
and
that's
it's like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go on, go on.
It's like so yeah, I mean, it doesn't really seem like he has any family or real friends left other than the practicals. Even though there's magic in the world, I don't believe he's going to just magically be better and his legs are
No,
going to get better. I don't see that happening.
it would be detrimental for the character, I think, as well. I don't think
Exactly.
Abercrombie would do that.
No. And so it's like, so what does he want? Where can he end up?
My super
Mhm.
tinfoil hat theory is that
Mhm.
he's going to end up being the king. He's going to sit down in the throne and he's going to say, "Now this is the chair. This is the chair."
Oh, that'd be so good. Yes. I
I
want
don't
that
really
to
see how
happen.
that's going to
Yeah.
happen. It will be
I,
a really cool payoff for the "now this is a chair I can see myself sat on." But yeah, I don't think that's gonna. He's not even in line for the throne.
that would be the coolest. But yeah, I don't know what's the likelihood
Yeah,
of that actually
like he
happening, but
manages
man,
to
I'm
outwit
rooting for that.
everyone. Yeah,
He plays the Game of Thrones and he wins.
yeah. Long live King Glokta.
Yes, he had the best story. So
Yeah,
West, now his story got really interesting towards, we're only
really
halfway through.
recently, yeah.
So it's leaving off with him being put in command, at a much higher level. He's on the staff now of some really, top guys. And at first, initially, when he's being told all this, I thought, oh no, he's had the perfect life already. Like, he's got it all situated. He fought in war, he won.
Mhm.
He has this fame, even though he came from, the wrong blood. And he has the fame. He has his sister safe. He's in the big city. He's did it. He's good. And they told him, oh no, he's getting pulled back to war. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be devastating for him. And he was like, at the end, he kind of
Then he's grinning.
smiles and he's just like, should I enjoy? I know it's a
How
bad thing,
very
but I
sad am
really
I?
enjoy.
Ooh,
Yeah, how sad am I? And it's like, oh,
what
he
a
likes
tragic
this.
life.
Oh, okay. It goes back to Game of Thrones with the whole chaos is a
Yeah,
ladder.
exactly. Yeah,
He's
it's
that.
that is it. War is such a good opportunity for people to climb above their station. And I'm pulling from Hamilton here. But yeah, it is true though. It is that you see this war is reshuffling the sort of the social status and ending up, you can end up dead, or you can end up
Yeah.
way higher than what you were before.
And he's not throwing away his shot.
Yes.
I just had to try to
Yes,
throw
you had
in
to sneak that in.
Let me just squeeze that in real quick.
Oh
We've
man.
not thrown away.
Do not throw away your shot, West.
Yeah,
But it
and
is
so
like,
he's.
it is kind of a Hamilton-esque kind of story. He's a
It is.
commoner, and
Mhm.
he's climbing up against, the scorn of all of the, the blood,
Yeah,
the
people like
nobles, and
Jezal,
exactly. Yeah,
and
exactly.
then who are all like, oh, who's this guy? And he comes rising up, and he's
Yeah,
doing his thing.
yeah.
And I hope he doesn't die. Like,
I really hope he doesn't die now.
man, I wonder if he's going to uh, pull Jezal with him to the war in the north.
Hmm.
That's where, like, looking ahead to the second half. I wonder if
Like,
that's where
I'm
it's
going
going
to
to
keep
go.
an eye on you. I do not want to. I was so shocked when, and again, it really
Mhm.
shows how direct and to the point the writing is. When he basically goes and says, Giselle, I really hope you're not planning to fuck my sister. I was like, whoa, okay. Damn.
It's to the point. He's blunt. He said, "Hey,
Yep.
look,
Boom.
I know you. I know what you're about."
Listen, mate. No.
He grabs him by the shoulders. He's like, "You
Yeah.
stay away from my sister."
Yeah.
And Jezal's like, "Well," and he's like, and he talks about his
Actually,
blood, or he starts out with a pain in his neck, and then it's
yeah.
throbbing, and then it's boiling, and then he gets angry and he's pissed, and you could
Yeah.
tell. But Jezal is not staying away from Ardee
Yeah.
unless West grabs him by the collar and takes him to the north. I
Yeah.
think that's the only way it's happening.
Yeah. And then we were talking about how Ardee is such a good female character, and
Yes.
maybe it's something that we don't have a main female POV, but the female the POVs in the book are really well, like they don't feel like they're a prop. It's not, they pass the Bechdel test. It's not just a romantic interest, a damsel in distress being thrown about by the by male. Um, it is
Yeah.
very in.
And then when you talk about stuff like grimdark always being a derivative of the traditional fantasy novel, and you have a character like Ardee who she's definitely not the damsel in distress, right?
Mhm.
She doesn't want anybody to save her.
No.
She's smart, she's witty. She doesn't care about hurting Jezal's feelings. She'll tell
Yeah.
him exactly like it is, and she's pretty funny. But
Yeah.
she also has a drinking problem,
Hmm.
and so she has a flaw. She has nothing to do all day. She sits home and she drinks, and she's lonely, and that's not the typical thing you would see, I guess. I mean, you've seen, like,
Yeah.
even in Lord of the Rings they had female characters who were like warriors, but this is such a well fleshed out character. She has flaws, and we still haven't seen from her perspective, but she has her flaws and she has, her strengths, and it's like you can see why Jezal is falling for her,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
think
such a
I
good
think it's
character.
really, it's brilliant how we get to have so much depth of a character with just a few pages that we've seen her, and we get to see really her struggle from being, a commoner, and then um, her brother raises up in the ranks, which pulls her along into that, you know climbing the social ladder, but then she's not, she's way too out of, she's way too high for commoners, but also she's not really, she doesn't have the blood to marry a nobleman, so she's alone, she feels lonely, she has a drinking problem, and it's not a very womanly thing to have, and she struggles with that. And also the fact that she outwits everyone, like she's really clever. And I think that's what she really sees in Jezal, that he's comparable in terms of intellect and in terms of being witty, and the noble people, I suppose, have everything handed to them, so they don't really have to develop that much. So I think that what it's in that exchange. Do you remember when she's talking to some other noble guy and Jezal is all jealous and goes, "What are you doing?"
Don't you
I
have
think,
something to do? Yeah.
yeah, I think she was using that nobleman as to make him jealous, to make Jezal jealous. I
Oh,
don't
for
think
sure.
she would go for someone that doesn't equate to that level of
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
clever.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that contrast with the other. There's another woman who's trying to get Jezal's attention, and she's so, like, too polite and too nice, and doesn't really say anything, doesn't challenge him, and
Yeah.
he's realizing he doesn't want that. He
Mhm.
wants the challenge. He wants this Ardee, who's somebody he's never experienced before, and she'll be real with him. And that's being real, apparently, with nobility and the royalty and all that is just not something that happens a lot.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's smiling in your face and then stabbing you in the back. That's what he's used to. So this is a totally different thing. And that brings us to Jezal. I mean, his story, again, it really reminds me of Jalin from another story called the Prince of Fools. But, you know, he starts off, when we first see him, he's arrogant, he's kind of smug, thinks he's better than people, he has the right blood. And he's sitting at this card table, you know, kind of describing everybody. I thought that was a cool scene.
That was a really cool scene.
Just breaking down quickly, you know, hey, this person, the way they play cards is the way that character is in real life. That was awesome. But Jezal gets the most complete character arc in the first half of the book. And because the way he starts off, and then he has that motivational speech from Glokta, and then he runs into Ardee, and she challenges him in a way that he's just not used to. And so he stops drinking, and he starts taking his training seriously. And all of a sudden, you know, he starts becoming a better man as a direct result of Ardee. And that's the most change any of the characters have gone through. And because it's been so complete, I'm a little worried he's going to die in the second half because it just has that feeling.
I've got a feeling that he's gonna, either his big mouth is going to be the end of him, or he's going to get, imagine how like powerful it would be that they have the fencing contest and there's an accident and he dies. I've got a feeling that that's what's going to happen.
Man. Yeah, or if for some reason, if West is able to drag him to the north, and maybe he dies heroically, right? Maybe he dies
against that savage beast
Fenris
thing.
the Feared. Yeah, I think that was one of Jezal's coolest moments. One that he said he just kind of shouted out and didn't even think about. But when they have the open court or the open council, and Fenris the Feared comes walking in, and it's just like, you know, who wants to challenge me? You know, we can fight instead of the war, you know, send me your champion and we'll decide it this way. And they all kind of laugh. And Jezal's like, you know, God, what does he say?
I think it was the Feared said, is it you that is going to fight me? And then Jezal goes, maybe tomorrow, I'm busy.
Yeah, and then casual, and everybody laughs.
I've got a thing.
Yeah, I got things to do. You know, maybe tomorrow. And Fenris the Feared is like, yeah, but he doesn't realize he's just fucking with him. They don't take this seriously at all. And that's going to be a big deal because, I mean, it says everything about the major city and the Union. They think they're untouchable, and you have this savage from the north come in who's very obviously violent and has magic of some kind, and they don't take it seriously. It's not until they get the people taking over the frontier and they get the heads in the boxes that they're like, oh shit, this is a real threat. And
the second I read about the box, I was like, no, those are heads. Those are heads for sure.
For sure. And it goes back to that visceral imagery of just, he opens the box, it smells bad, and he just sees, is that dirt and hair? And then his captain's just like, oh, we buried the rest. Yeah. It's like, oh, damn.
Yeah. I was thinking, what you just said about like you get to see like the weaknesses of a union that, you know, in appearance it looks strong but has internal, you know, squabbles. And it reminds me, thinking about like the inspirations for Abercrombie, clearly there is, you know, his basing off of the United Kingdom, and there's England, and there's the, you know, the Union. And it reminds me of back in the day where the British Empire was at its highest point, and it appeared powerful and strong, and then everyone was sort of like chilling in the capital whilst the American Revolution was happening, whilst there was war with France. Like, they were really struggling to maintain their borders, but everything seemed fine, everything is cool. And it gives me that sort of vibe. Or like when the Roman Empire decayed, the Panem Circense, you know, in the capital there was like parties and festivals to sort of try to make people forget that, oh shit, the barbarians are right here.
Yeah, and they're more focused on building cool statues than paying attention to the danger, you know. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then it's funny when I hear you say that, like, reading it, I think England, don't even pay attention to how much that sounds like England. And it's like,
It's literally
obviously,
one letter.
yeah. Like, until you hear, and then I hear it out loud. Oh yeah, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it would be great. I wonder who's going to be the Hamilton character then, if there's going to be a revolution somewhere outside of it. But Bethod starts singing, and you're like, oh no, this is not turning out well.
Raise your glass of freedom.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it does seem like they're being careless. They're not paying attention, and this is also Abercrombie also shows this when we first see the city. Logan can't believe what he's seeing because just the sheer size of the buildings. They're so tall and it's so massive and it's magnificent, right? It looks beautiful. And then you get closer and it smells like shit. It smells like fish. It smells like rotting stuff. You get close and you really look at what's happening, and the society is decaying. And from the outside, I think that's really talking about like what's happening here. They think everything's fine when it's clearly not. And now you have a real threat coming down from the north.
Yeah.
Ready for war. And then another thing too that we haven't touched on just briefly. So we're about halfway, and they talk about, one of the last pages I've read is just talking about the soldiers that the capital's putting out, and it looks like there's all these people who are barely clothed. They maybe have weapons.
They thought it was prisoners or something.
Yeah, and then Logan was like, "Oh, yeah, is that a march of prisoners?" And then Beaz was like, "Those are soldiers." And he's like, "What?" And then he's like, "Oh, don't worry, there's some more." And then the next group come, it's all these just rich guys in like fancy hats, and like he's like, "I can't tell which one looks less like a soldier."
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is what you're sending out against the Northmen?" And it's like, oh no. So it already feels like, oh, this is gonna be bad. It's
gonna be bloody. I was gonna say something with what you said about like the city and, you know, being good in appearance and being shitty in reality, and how Abercrombie manages to really like, brevity is the soul of the wit, and it's like sharp and to the point, and he doesn't tell us things, he shows us things. Like with the theatrical outfitters, he could have just said, oh, the aristocracy, it's just bullshit, it's all for show, and they just dress up and walk about. Instead, he takes them to a theatrical outfitters, and it's just the best way to describe that kind of being vacuous and being just for show, but with a comedic twist, with a witty twist. And I love
Absolutely. That's totally the author winking at us too when they go there, and it's like, oh, here's a performance. And then again, to touch on, so he's doing that. I feel like there's so many levels to it, because he's hitting on that note about society, but then he's also hitting on just kind of grimdark, which I don't know if this is, you know, purposeful or not, but again, grimdark is a derivative or sometimes flips common fantasy tropes on their head. And he's kind of laughing at that because he's going, and Baez looks like just, you know, a bald dude. He looks like a butcher, you know, just regular dude.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now he's going to dress like what you would think a fantasy wizard. Yeah, he's going to dress the part now. And it's like, and then Logan puts on the barbarian outfit, and he's like, this wouldn't keep me warm. It wouldn't keep me safe.
It's not practical.
What is this? Yeah. And it's like, we're all laughing like, yeah. Like,
I think that is one of the best. I think right now, I would appreciate more someone that is self-aware and doesn't take their writing too seriously. Like they don't sit down thinking, I'm going to write the best work of art. No, just chill, just have fun with your writing. Don't take yourself too seriously. And I think your work will improve so much. And I think that's what Abercrombie is doing. It doesn't take his work to, like, he doesn't want to elevate it to weird realms. He just wants to be direct to the point, and it really works for it.
Agree 100%. That's great advice for writers watching also. What you just said.
Yeah, I would recommend don't get too worked up on I need to like write the most lyrically complicated sentences, and just sit down and write what you're thinking, and not overthinking will help.
Yeah, I mean, just let the story do the work. Let the story do all the heavy lifting, you know, and that's what he does. And I'm surprised at how funny it's been. That's one thing I was not expecting at all. Like these people are very clever, witty. So Joe Abercrombie is a clever, witty guy because all the characters are infused with that, and that's awesome. All right,
Yeah,
is there anything that sticks out before we go that you want to mention or bring up?
I think Jezal is going to end up dead somehow.
Yeah,
Um,
soon.
I
He's not making
think,
it through this series.
yeah, I think Logan is going to be. Oh well, I mentioned it. Like, there's going to be a battle, and he's going to be in the thick of it, and there's going to be like,
Mhm.
we're going to see a cool, battle scene with him, and I really want to see what happens with Major West in the north. I think there's gonna be conflict there, probably involving his sister. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I think the first half of the novel has totally let us just enjoy the characters, get to see who these people are, what are they about in their day-to-day lives. A lot of them are kind of lost. Some of them are aiming for things, but not necessarily the right things. And we know the characters so well by now that we're ready for the plot to just come crashing in. And I
yeah,
think that's going to be the second half. I think the war in the north and the Northmen and Bethod and Fenris the Feared and all of that is going to come crashing down on them. And that's going to be the major climax, is I'm assuming a big battle. Maybe not with
yeah.
Bethod himself, because I assume he's going to be, the villain at the end of the third book. And so maybe it's just Fenris the Feared that is going to face off with somebody, and we're going to have everything's going to revolve around that battle.
Yeah,
Now, where does Glokta take place, or what does he do during that? I have no idea. But the big battle is what we're going for,
yeah.
and I'm so ready for it.
Oh, I cannot wait. Like, I've been stopping myself from just reading today. I am ready to plunge ahead.
Mhm. Yes. All right. I guess this is a good place to stop. And we're about halfway through. So if you want to see us talk about the entire book, definitely subscribe, follow along me and Pablo's channels. We're going to be making more content on the Blade itself. Looking forward to finishing the book. Yeah. Other than that, any last words?
Go and read the book. It's really good. That's
Yeah.
it.
So if you haven't read it and you just want to watch some of the spoilers, that's cool. But go read it and then come back and talk to us. We can talk to you down in the comments below. But until next time, later.